Hello, I'm Tony, and today we are looking at the Zelda-like game Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, currently free from the Epic Game Store until the 9th of November 2023. First thing to note about this game is that it is actually for adults despite the childlike cartoon nature of the graphics. It's actually a parody of early Zelda games, and the story, references and jokes will probably go over the heads of most kids, I reckon. Plus the sudden spikes in difficulty will make things tricky for them too. The pixel graphic style is bright and somewhat simplistic, and all the characters have smiles, so your standard young kid cartoon. This may have been deliberate to contrast against the more adult story. It actually felt a little off-putting for me to begin with, but it did grow on me as I played. The music did help in later sections. It starts off with the sort of very simple plinky plonky happy music that plays in a lot of children's cartoons, but that changes to some genuinely good music that I enjoyed listening to. Very impressive. It changed the feel of the game, alongside the story, which changes to like more ominous story beats as it goes along. Gameplay is very Zelda-like. You pick up items that allow you to hit creatures that would otherwise take your hearts, which is your health, and you do fetch quests for a range of vegetables because you are a turnip. In the game, I'm not insulting anyone. You navigate through areas that open up as you discover more tools, or you get the appropriate quests, standard stuff. They're simple puzzles that involve using your tools and abilities, but can feel quite satisfying to solve as you progress. It sometimes requires a combination of skills used together. You do have to think about, well, I had to think about some of them. Because the game only took me like 2.5 hours to complete, there isn't really time for the puzzle solving to get stale, despite that none of them are that challenging. That is in very stark contrast to some of the boss fights. They are a significant jump in difficulty. Previously, all the enemies in the game take a couple of hits with your sword or shovel to defeat, and unless there's a lot of them on screen, which only happens in a few locations, they're pretty easy to clear out. The bosses take a ton of hits, have extra mechanics, and often can't really be defeated just by hitting them. Some of them need you to use a combination of skills in order to damage them, which means swapping between equipable items, which is a thing by itself that I'll talk about in a bit. I breezed through a couple of the boss fights, but needed like 10-20 attempts to figure out the mechanics for some of the others. The game wouldn't have lasted 2 hours if they hadn't been this difficult, I don't think. And I actually found the harder ones more interesting. I enjoyed the fights, they're pretty good. They're pretty imaginative. The story is one of document shredding. Sounds weird, but it kind of is. Your character, Turnip Boy, actually just wants to destroy every document out there. It's actually a significant plot point that he just rips up any document that you get given. Because you destroyed your tax form at the start of the game, you need to complete fetch quests for Mayor Onion, who's clearly an evil dude. Guy's got a monocle. What more do you need? The game plays into the tropes of Zelda-like games with jokes that honestly didn't land that often with me, unfortunately. Blocking off an area with a character or some boxes or something is obviously normal for Zelda games. Blocking it off with a meta spouting character of you need to finish the game to come back here or something like that works once, doesn't really work 3 or 4 times though, not for me. That's not to say there's no jokes that raised a few smiles for me. But I am a grumpy old man, comedy is subjective, and it didn't work for me. I can see a lot of them landing for other people though. I'm not going to spoil any, because they are kind of the point of the game in a way. It's just every interaction feels like they're trying to make a joke out of it, and I don't think a lot of them work for me. None of them were bad enough to be annoying or to spoil the experience. Didn't harm the gameplay for me. It just didn't manage to enhance it. What was a problem were the controls though. They felt really sluggish, and the swap item menu being like the worst culprit for that, which is a real issue in boss fights that require you to use multiple items really quickly. Another issue was that it wasn't easy to judge striking distances when attacking enemies, and some skills like laying a teleport pad just felt impossible to accurately place, which is a shame. It didn't hurt the gameplay so much that it made it unenjoyable, just a little bit of an irritant really. There are a bunch of collectibles to pick up and keep in a special menu area so that you can look at them later, mostly involving hats that your character can wear in the game. Once the game's been fully beaten, which has a really interesting ending, a couple of areas do open up. One of these is a cat character that gives you hints to any collectibles you've not yet found, which is a nice touch for completionists. And the second area is a train that effectively becomes a never-ending series of fights with all of the enemies and bosses you've defeated during the game, plus one extra. Playing through them gives tokens that can be spent on cosmetic items to dress your character up. And it's a roguelike fight where you pick power-ups as you progress, which disappear when you get defeated, and is a good bit of fun. The new boss is way harder than anything you fought before. I didn't beat it at all, I wasn't close. So, a challenging mode there for those that enjoyed the combat, which I didn't exactly, so I'm not going to go back, but I still feel like it's a good addition to the game. The game grew on me as I played through it. I enjoyed the story well enough, even if the jokes didn't work for me. If you like older school Zelda games, this should actually be a fun couple of hours that will pose a decent challenge, because despite being a parody, it still is one, and a reasonably competent one at that. If the comedy hits for you, so much the better. You'll enjoy it a lot more than I did, and you'll wish it was longer. And I'm pretty sure everyone will wish the controls were a bit better. I do recommend people pick this up while it's free to give it a try, because I enjoyed playing it, but I wouldn't be recommending it if it was a standard £11 price tag. There's not enough to it, and the irritations in the game would be worse if I'd actually paid for it. Okay, that's all from me for now. I'm going to go and not fill out a tax form either. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.